Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to generate weekly status reports on autopilot using Make and OpenAI. If you're anything like me and you hate creating status reports, you'll want to stick around because this system is going to blow your mind. And without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so here I am on the Miro board as always. And let's start backwards here. Let's start with the goal in mind, right? So what I have here is I have stored all the tasks and project-related information in my Airtable base. So here's a screenshot from the base. And here you can find typical things like the task ID, the description, due date, who's working on the task, the status, and whatnot, right? Now, this is good because we are organized and we have all the tasks. And this could be for a client, this could be for yourself, this could be at your job, wherever you are using a task manager or project manager. So you have all this information stored here, right? But the problem is now at the end of the week, and I remember back in my full-time job days, as well as now with some of the clients, I have to send weekly status reports. So we have all this data here, but what we need to send looks something like this, right? We need a report that has a nice overview, some updates from the week or whatever frequency you use, highlights, if there's any blockers, and then conclusion. So this is a nice executive summary that anyone who's a stakeholder, your client, your manager, whoever can get and get a glance of everything you or your team worked on over the week or month. So this is what we need to get to. And we are going to do this using AI, right? So we have all this data and we used to do this manually, but now we're going to replace ourselves and we're going to leverage AI to be able to build this report. So that's the goal. So we want to get to something that looks like this. Perfect. Before we start building it, let's get into the architecture and talk about what is the setup here today. So the setup here is a typical setup that you would have for working with a client. So a client typically gets access to a client portal where they can see, and if you are the service provider, the client can log into the client portal and they can see the status of everything. The portal can be, again, in Airtable, it can be in Software, Notion, wherever, it doesn't matter. So they get in here, they can see, okay, what is the status of all the work that is being done? And you as a service provider or the project manager have access to either a portal or something like an Airtable where you're able to maintain the up-to-date information. And this could also be done by developers directly. Maybe they have access to a Kanban board somewhere where they manage their tasks and they are going about their work and assigning themselves a ticket, working on a ticket, moving the ticket to in progress, moving the ticket to blocked, and moving the ticket to done eventually. So all these things are happening all the time. And the client can log in at any time and see what is the latest and greatest status of the work or the project that they are working on with you. So they get access to the portal. We have a backdoor access through Airtable, either through an interface or directly into the database. And then all this data stores here in the screenshot that I showed you earlier. So this is very, very active environment. The team is making updates all the time. And then what we want to do, or in our architecture, what we have is in addition to Airtable, and then for client portal, I'm going to be using Software today. We also have Make, of course. And then Make is what fetches data from the Airtable database and then runs a job either every week, every month, whatever your frequency is. And then it's going to leverage several other tools like PDF.co, OpenAI, and Dropbox to bring everything together and generate the report. So that's the architecture and that we're going to be leveraging today. And I think the one last thing that we want to talk about before we do the build is the algorithm. So how is it all going to work? So we understand that this is our data. This is the report we want to get to. This is the architecture. We have a backdoor entry as a service provider. Client has a portal. And then we have all this stuff going on. But then how do we actually get to the status report? So before we talk about the algorithm, let's just quickly take a look at all of these things just so we have some visuals. And then we're going to come back here and then talk about the algorithm of how we're going to get from this data into the report. Okay, so let's start with the backend. So here I have my AI project management portal. So this is my Airtable database. So as you can see, I have some projects listed here: website revamp, mobile app v3, project tracker, and then each project has its own status and it is linked to various tasks which live in the tasks table. So here we can see all the tasks and then they're linked back to the project. And then of course the due date and the assignee, the status, and all that good stuff. And this stuff is visible in the portal. So if I go over to the front end, and yeah, this is the projects page. So here we can see the same projects listed here: mobile app v3, project tracker, website revamp. They're coming from this table in the projects table in the database. And then once I click on any of the tasks, let's click here, we can see information related to that particular project. So here we see mobile app v3, and it has several tasks. I was doing some testing earlier here. So new task or task 5 is in progress. Look for the best no-code tool for the mobile app. And then there are a few tasks that are done and nothing in blocked at the moment. And at the bottom, what you also see is an activity log, which we will talk about in a second. Okay, so that's the setup. So what we can do here is we can essentially either the client can do this or you can do this depending on who has access to which interface. But essentially, we have an option to create a few tasks. So we can either do that from here or we can do that directly because we have the backdoor entry here. We can do that from here as well. So let's create a few tasks, and I have a few sticky notes here. So just remember that here we have 6 tasks in total, and I'm going to create 3 more tasks. So let's just pick some stuff from here. So research and integrate a secure user authentication system. Okay, so let's create task number 1. And I'm going to paste that for the description. And this is linked to mobile app v3. And let's give it a due date of, let's give it 1 week. And then we will say, so this task was a secure authentication system. I'll just give some notes. This is essential to maintain the security of our user data, and a thorough research must be conducted. Some notes. Okay, very good. And so the status can be in to do. Very good. And let's create a couple more. Develop a seamless in-app payment feature for premium content. Sounds like a good task. So I'll go back here. Again, this is linked to mobile app v3. And this one, let's give it a couple of weeks. Perfect. And this is one of the most requested features by our users or something like that, just to give it some context. And that can stay in to do as well. And then finally, one more task, implement a user-friendly onboarding process to enhance new user experience. Perfect. Paste that in here. Again, mobile app v3. And let's also give it 2 weeks. Good. And we'll say this is crucial to reduce churn of our users. Perfect. Very good. So now we added 3 tasks. Let's go over to what the client would see. So we added it through the backend. And if we refresh, so the client will now see these 3 tasks show up here. So far, so good. So we're doing some data and then they're showing up for the client. But the thing is that the client doesn't know, okay, what was there earlier? Maybe they didn't log in for a while and what was just added. So they don't know exactly what was added when and what moved where when. So to track that activity that is taking place, we maintain something called an activity log. And now this is a good time to talk about the algorithm that we will use to get to the report. So let's go back over to the Miro board. What I have here in the algorithm is, it is basically divided into 2 steps. So the first step is keep a log ongoing. So this is the activity log that I've been mentioning, but we haven't used it yet. So what's happening here? So basically what's happening here is that, as I said, this is a very active environment. Things are happening throughout the week, right? Updates, deletes, things getting moved to done and whatnot. What we want to do is we want to have some kind of a watcher that is watching this activity at all times. So anytime anything happens, it has the eyes on our board and it will capture that and say, aha, got it. I'm going to log that. So let me zoom in here. So we have a watcher that is keeping an eye on all the updates at all the time, and it is going to capture anytime an update takes place, and it's going to log it into a database. And for this, we are going to leverage Google Sheets because this tends to get pretty chatty, and there's a lot of updates that can happen. So we don't want to waste our records in Airtable base. So we are going to use Google Sheets for this one. So what is this watcher? So of course, it is a make scenario that is keeping an eye on my Airtable database, and anytime any update happens, it's going to take it and it's going to log it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this watcher. So I'm going to switch over to make, and I have a couple of scenarios here. So this is the second one we're going to use. So 2 scenarios today, but let's start with the first one. So this one is essentially watching my records on the Airtable base. So it is actually, the name here has changed because I changed it to AI Project Management Portal. Hopefully it should still be connected by the base ID, so the name should not matter. But essentially it is watching the tasks table, and the trigger field is a modified time. So it knows when something is getting modified. And then based on that, it will fetch the information from the Airtable base. And what it's going to do is it has 4 different branches. If a task is created, it will go here. If the status was changed, it will go here. If the due date was changed, it will go here. And if the assignee was changed, it will go here. So this way, we are able to, in very fine-grained detail, able to log exactly what is happening. And it's going to end up, all this data is going to end up in Google Sheets in a sheet called activity log. So here I already have some previous data from various days of testing, but now I just added 3 more tasks. So what would happen is if this scenario is running, it's not running, but if I run it every 15 minutes, it will basically capture those updates. But for us, for now, we can just quickly run it manually and see what happens. Hey, if you're enjoying this tutorial, you might want to check out No Code University, where I have a ton of practical courses on similar topics, including Airtable and Zapier. You can learn everything you need to know to unlock high-income opportunities in the no-code and AI space. To get started, you can find the link in the description below. Now back to the video. Okay, there we go. So it was able to determine that some activity happened. And again, this will be happening every 15 minutes in a real-world scenario. And it just logged 3 things into my Google Sheets. And let me just quickly show you what's happening here. We basically take sheet 1 and we take the ID of the task from Airtable and we say it was created by, so whoever created that in Airtable. We say the type is created, and again, we log a lot of different information, the description, the project, and the modified time and stuff like that. So if we go over to the activity log, we will now see 3 tasks. So task 20, 21, 22. So these are the same 3 tasks that I added here. And now they are logged for us. It says created. So remember, we need very fine-grained information to be able to create our status report. And that's why we are logging all of this here. So we're logging even the type of activity. So we logged that, okay, it was created. And then we have the type of activity that happened. So it is created. It could be modified, or actually it will just be modified or created. But if it is modified, then we also log what is the type of modification. And then we have the task ID, the description of the task, the project, and the modified time. So these were all created type activities. So let's say if we move something to, I don't know, maybe I'm going to assign this one to myself, and I'm going to maybe update the status of this one to, or maybe let's update the status of a previous one, task 6, to done. So let's go back to the portal and see if it changes. Okay, so this one, actually, let me go back. So task 20 was assigned to me. So I see my name here. And then task 6 is something that I moved to done. So let's see, where's task 6? Oh, actually, that's a task in a different project. So let's pick something from this project, mobile app v3. Let's go back here. And I'm going to move something from here only to done. So let's say task 5 is now done. Very good. So now if I run the report again, so notice now it went into a few different branches. So it went into status because remember, we moved one thing into done and then one thing into, actually we moved 2 things into done. And then one thing was assigned to me. So it went into the assignee branch and it logged there. So let's see what we got in the log. So here we get task 20 was assigned to Sahil Khosla. So the type of change is modification, and type of modification is basically the assignee was changed. And then status updated to done by Sahil Khosla. So task 6, I updated to done, and then task 5 also I updated to done. So here we got that these are all modified, and then these are set to done. So we are logging all this fine-grained detail. And what happens is all this detail also, if I refresh, and if you go here at the bottom, this same log from Google Sheets is also being fetched here. So if the client wants to see during the week what's happening, okay, on 10th July, due date was updated by Sahil Khosla, a new task was created by Sahil Khosla, a status was updated to done. So in addition to just this board over here, we can now also see in real time exactly what is happening in the project, right? So we are getting every update being logged here in the activity log. And we also see the type of change, the type of activity, whether it's created or modified. Very good. So let's go back to the Miro board. So we just saw this middle step, right? So this is happening every 15 minutes or whatever frequency you set it to. Anytime anything changes, it's going to get logged. Very good, because this is going to form the foundation for the main scenario, which is build the report. Okay, so let's talk about that. So now that we have our project management setup, we have the activity log. Now let's talk about the third and final step, which is the report. Very good. So let's go over to make, and this is a pretty long scenario. So let's go over here and walk through this step by step. Okay, so this is called auto generate project management report. And as you can see, a lot of steps happening here. So let me just walk you through one at a time. So it starts at Airtable actually. So why does it start at Airtable? Because in Airtable, I have a table called reports, right? So here, every time a report is generated, it is going to get saved here along with a summary of the report, some actions required, and the PDF. And we also store the created date. Now, why do we store the created date? Because we only want to create a report for all the activity that has happened since the last report. We don't want to capture the stuff that was already included in the previous report. That's going to defeat the purpose. So that's why we store the date here. And then in the make scenario, we actually start by checking the created date of the previous report. So we get that date. And then what we do is we go over to Google Sheets and we tell it to give us all the activity log since that created date, right? So later than that created date that's coming from Airtable. So it's going to give us all the data that was stored here. So all of these items that were stored here since the last date of the report. So that's first step. So we fetch all the data from Google Sheets. And then what we do is we use a JSON aggregator. So we take all the information from the activity log, the type of modification, the task, status, due date, assignee, notes, timestamp, everything. We take it and put it into a JSON, which is what we are going to send over to OpenAI, because that's what OpenAI is going to parse to be able to create our report. But before we do that, there's one more step, which is download a file. So you might be wondering, what is this file? In this case, we want to send some prompts to OpenAI. We want to tell it to take the data and create a report. But we also want to tell it what is the structure of the report. And the structure of the report is actually stored in an HTML file in my Dropbox. So let me open that here in VS Code. So here, I have an HTML file, which is my weekly status report. I have some logos at the top. I have an overview section. I have an updates section. So this is the same thing that we saw here in the screenshot that I showed you earlier: overview, updates, highlights, blockers. So all of this is coming from my HTML that sits here. But that's not it. That's not it. There's something else going on in the HTML as well, which is I have some prompts directly built into my HTML. So for example, write a brief executive summary, 1-2 lines highlighting the key updates for the week, or list of tasks created with ID and details. So I have all this prompts built into my HTML file. What we are doing is we are basically gathering the data from various sources. So we're getting our Google Sheets data and we're getting the HTML file. So we got the data and the prompts, and then we combine it all in my OpenAI module. So here for the system, I said, you are a very organized project manager who creates easy to read weekly executive reports to provide updates on the progress of the projects. So that's the system. So it knows, okay, now I need to act like a organized project manager. And the user, here we say, summarize this activity log into a project management report HTML format. And then there's a bunch of different details. I'm happy to share this prompt with you, of course. And then here is where everything comes together. This report should follow the provided HTML format. And that is coming from the data in the Dropbox file, which is our HTML file. And the activity log is available as a JSON in this JSON string, which is coming from here. So this is how we're bringing both the things together, the data and the prompt in the HTML file. And then we tell it for the output should be also an HTML. And then I also need a couple of other keys, which is summary and an action required. I give it the tokens and then tell it to return everything as a JSON object. So that is the prompt. Now, once we get this back, we parse the JSON and we send this HTML to PDF Co. And they have an option to basically take an HTML and convert it into a PDF. And the input HTML code is going to come from this JSON from the result. And that is what we're going to pass it here. And we're also going to give it the file name, which can just be the created date. And in this format, we want the portrait and letter size. So pretty basic information here. And then we download the file. Once we get the file back from here, I actually store it in Dropbox, create a shareable link, and then store that link back in Airtable in the reports table with the summary, the created date, the action required, and the URL of the file. And then also so this is the name of the file, and then this is the PDF. So that is how we go from the data to the report. So let's now run it because we already have because the last report was created on 21st of June, and we have a lot of activity that has happened since then. So all of these things happened today after 21st of June. So if we run this report, so let's go ahead and play. It will fetch everything from Google Sheets since that report. It's going to send it to OpenAI, which it is doing right now. It's going to take 30 seconds or so. And once it's done, it is going to send it over to PDF Co. and then finally to Dropbox and then store all that information in Airtable. Perfect. So let's go back to Airtable and see what we got. So here we go. So it is 10th of July today, and we just got a new report dropped into our Airtable. And let's see, so if we expand this, we have a summary also. This week saw a significant progress with completion of key features. No immediate action required. Continuous monitoring and evaluation of new tasks will keep the project on track. So it knows that I have 3 new tasks and it added them in action required. And it said there's no immediate action required, but just monitor these new tasks. And then it also created a PDF, of course. So that is what we were after. So if you click on view report, okay, cross that, so many pop-ups. Okay, and let me reduce the zoom here a little bit. Okay, perfect. So we got a nice looking PDF report. It says all these tasks were created to focus on future deliverables. I think 15 might have also been created since the last report. And there's some modifications. 6 was updated to done, 5 was updated to done, and then task 20 was assigned to Sahil Khosla. So it knows all of these things. And then in the highlights, it says this week was marked by completion of several key tasks. Actually, let me zoom back in. A setting menu was updated successfully to enhance discoverability and ease of use. Multiple new tasks were created. Several significant tasks reached completion. So yeah, so it's pretty good. And it's also adding context, like it added to enhance discoverability and ease of use and stuff like that. And then for the blockers, no major blockers at the moment. So if you have something in the portal that sits in the blocked status, it can capture that and then basically report on the blockers as well. I didn't have any here. That's why it said no blockers. And then finally, go back to the report. Conclusion, looking forward, tasks such as the ones created this week, 20, 21, 22 will set the stage for upcoming milestones. And yeah, so what you get here will be, as good as your prompt. So if you tell the prompt to basically be less verbose or add more context or add more information about the task, is what you're going to get as the output. So this is a pretty basic prompt that I created to get to this report, which is pretty decent, but I can totally see some stakeholders having different requirements. So then you will just adjust your prompt accordingly. And just to bring it all back together, so if we go back into the portal, there's also a section called reports. And if we click here, it's going to open the status overview page where you can see the task count by status or by project. Mobile App V3 has 11 tasks, and overall we have 8 tasks done, but 4 in to do. So this is across all the projects, not just Mobile App V3. And then here you get those reports as well. So you see the summary, you see the action required. So this is coming from these 2 fields here. And then finally, it's created by Make plus OpenAI. And then the full report, if I click on this, it's going to take me back to the same Dropbox location that I just showed you with the report. So from the client's perspective, they can come in here at any time. Maybe they can also get a notification that a new report was just dropped. And they come in here, they can click on this and view the report. You as a project manager can be completely out of the picture because now you have a watcher and someone building the report on your behalf. And all the team has to do is keep the tickets up to date with the latest and greatest information and the status. And then Make will do its job every week and send the report to your clients. So that's the setup. I will drop the blueprints and the prompt below if you need them. Otherwise, let's stop here and see you in the next one.